Cal DeKuiper, first of all, how will the Zeeland Public Schools adapt to what the governor has added on in terms of suspending in-person education throughout the rest of academic 2020?
Yeah, well, this is quite a puzzle, and we've been working on it for a while. We anticipated that it was coming, and I think probably the most important part is teachers really want to teach, and they want to get back to with their classes and say hello to their kids and give them virtual hugs, and so they're ready to go. Boy, the challenge is a big challenge, but I think we're ready to go.
What about getting tech devices to the youngsters? I know we've talked about this before. Has that been pretty successful, or is there still some holes that need to be filled on that?
There's a few holes, but it's also been successful. So if you think we have 6,500 students and 350 teachers and 13 grade levels, we know that about 1/4 of our students have very secure family situations right now, that their parents are ready to go. We also know that 1/3 of our families do not have reliable internet for them, and that about that same number are very concerned about food source. So you have basic needs that are all over the range, and we want to take care of all of those kids. High school kids have devices at home. K-5, or actually preschool through grade 5, have devices, but they are in the schools. And one of the big concerns that we have, if we decide to go with devices at the elementary buildings, and we may not, is that those devices are not yet set up with a filter for inappropriate websites when they're off school property. So we have to individually touch each one of those preschool through 5 devices and get those corrected if we're going to do that.
And that's going to be a while because you have a number, it's not like you have only about 100 students. This is a good amount.
Well, our tech team has 4 people, and that would be probably 2,500 devices. They've told me they can do it in about 4 or 5 days if they work around the clock. But at the same time, when we know that about 1/3 of our students don't have reliable internet at home, we may look for another plan. And I'm going to give those teachers at those grade levels a little bit more liberty. They're after it, and they're trying to solve it without the tech device being critical.
That leads to a point that not all of the Zeeland Public School District is, shall we say, Wi-Fi accessible, especially the rural parts of the district as well. Trying to make sure they have online connections is not the easiest thing in the world.
Well, that's right. And, one of our pieces of evidence is we've delivered 40,000 meals. So we know that these families are under stress, and Dr. Stephanie Grant, who's one of the renowned experts right here in Holland, has reminded us often, and I hear her voice in my head telling me often, when students are under stress, high stress, learning that goes to long-term memory is severely compromised. So we know we have to try to get kids into a comfortable position, parents into a comfortable position, try to have the learning environment and what they are able to learn be as comfortable as they possibly can in order for this to be successful.
Talking with Zeeland School Superintendent Cal DeKuiper, what about helping parents and guardians with the instruction situation? Because obviously the kids can learn directly, but the parents have to be part of the solution as well.
Absolutely. And I say this with a smile quite often, but whenever we're in some difficulty with something technological, I usually go find a 12-year-old. And they can help me out. But at the same time, we have to recognize that imagine we send devices home and learning is at home, and teachers that have been teaching one way for decades, all of a sudden in a matter of about a 2-week period, retool and go online. And then for us to think that the families are going to be able to figure out all this online learning overnight, that's just not going to happen. We're going to have to start slowly and do the very best we can. So I appreciate the governor's orders. I think for the health and safety, it's absolutely the right thing to do. And I heard the words for schools to give it their very best good faith effort. And that's what we're going to do. We'll do the very best we can. We'll probably change it on day 2 from what we do on day 1.
Obviously, education and safety is one thing, but You know as well as I do, Cal, that the bottom line has to be considered as well. What about costs?
Well, we're in a good spot right now. So for two reasons. Number one is that our community has been so gracious with us and helped us. Our devices are there. Our day-to-day business operations are stable. We are certainly not in a wonderful spot, but we're in a good spot. And the second reason is that our teachers and our teacher contracts and our service contracts over the last couple of years have been very favorable to try to rebuild our savings account. So a big credit to the staff. So we feel we're good where we are financially, that we can deliver. And I've said to our team, and we all agree, taxpayers pay us, and everything in a school system is tax funded. And if there's ever been a time that we need to give some of that money back, it's right now.
Obviously, some of the overhead will be different because the fact the buildings aren't open. But again, you have to deal with personnel costs, and so that sort of offsets that as well. What about the other mandate that the governor has said, saying that the start of academic 2021 classes can start before Labor Day? It really maybe not a factor with Zeeland schools because of the fact that the waivers had been in place already, but certainly that's got to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, and a way to understand this a little bit better is we have 1,000 policies and guidelines in Zeeland Public Schools, and not one of them talks about pandemic or long-term closure, and in a way that gives us some freedom to just try to figure out and do what's right. And with the freedom and the latitude given in the executive order that we could start, and some schools might want to go balanced calendar. We're going to have to see where the pandemic lies and where the appetite for education to be rebuilt is. But certainly at the beginning of next school year, we're going to have to figure out how do we balance the grade they were in moving into the grade level they're going to be moving to.
Buildings are closed right now for educational purposes in terms of classroom learning, but the buildings themselves still need to be open for obviously maintenance and upkeep and the like. And of course, the administrative offices, as much you can work from home, that's fine, but there are still some times where you're going to have to be in the buildings itself. Trying to make sure that everybody stays safe has got to be paramount.
That is absolutely number one. You know, the word safe is first in safe, valued, and loved, and that's for a reason, and that's for students and community, but it's also our staff. We have a maintenance team that's in there right now, staying spread out properly. We have the right safety gear today. We've ordered some more to make sure. Once those buildings, and we think they're really close to being fairly clean right now, we're going to get that team out of there and see what happens. At the same time, if we need to go to our elementary devices, we're going to have to figure out how to have a structured, timed, a few people at a time getting devices. So we're working on some of those potential plans now too.
Now, what about other ways of making sure that those who are caring for the youngsters now, parents and guardians, get the information they need? Obviously, you're sending information directly to them, but what about other ways if they have questions beyond maybe what the information that's been sent by the district?
Yeah, so we're asking in all of our communications, and I appreciate what you're doing to every mechanism possible, and you are always so good about helping us get the message out. But if I'm sending it out through these types of things, through social media, we're going to have to send it through direct mail because everybody receives their information in a different way. And the thinking that somebody will rearrange what they like for this is probably not going to happen. So we have to communicate with each one of them in the way that they're used to. Our technology office is open and is staffed, and we are publishing the numbers and the communication systems with them so that they can have one-to-one help if they need it.
One final thing, Cal, the class of 2020 at Zeeland East and Zeeland West High Schools, no graduation ceremony, no senior prom. And yes, they might have something later on. This is going to be a unique year for them. They had their homecoming plans problems earlier in the fall. Now this has happened. Is there anything, even in the minds of the people in the district, we got to do something for the class of 2020 because of what they went through their senior year?
Yes, absolutely. And if you know the kids, then you really feel what they feel. And For example, a young lady that I met that was the lead in the musical and got to do it one time after preparing, or the state championship track teams who are ready to defend, and they've been running all over town all winter long, and example after example of that. So we are committed to a graduation, whenever that might be. It might be July or August. And folks like yourself and Dan Diodana at the Holland Sentinel, they're trying to, what can we do to highlight some of these kids who are going to miss that chance to be highlighted? Our athletic directors are doing the same. Our fine arts teachers are doing the same. So we're going to do the best we can, and it's not going to be the same. All we have to do, we just have to accept that that's what it is and do the best we can.
Zeeland School Superintendent Cal DeKuiper, I want to thank you very much for joining us today on WHTC Morning News, sharing your thoughts about, again, a very unusual situation. Nobody would have thought 6 weeks ago we would be in this situation, but here it is. We move forward, and let's see what happens over the next couple of months as academic 2020 ends on a computer screen instead of handing out diplomas later on this spring.
Yeah, Gary, thank you. You know, the folks who are on the front line are those folks in the hospitals and the health providers. So the rest of us have to know that anything we can do to flatten the curve, to give them a chance to do their work, that's our highest priority.